Hey, what's up? Welcome to Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and live awesome lives. I am joined by Polish Peter. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. So for this particular episode, I feel like I need to switch up my accent, man. Get more British a little bit.
She has a cooler accent than you, just saying.
Well, you need to develop one, because now you got two people on the podcast who have accents and you're still like this. I don't know. I guess English is an accent. I guess,
I could pull off a Boston, Massachusetts accent, but that's about it. Nothing substantial. And everything else is just, if I try to make an accent, I come off as like Russian with one word, Australian with another word. It's just a disaster.
For the remaining of this introduction, I need you to speak in the Boston accent. How about
that? Yeah. Dude, we got Lisa Catto on the line for this interview. She's awesome, man. She is a maverick. She's a rock star. Really a heavy hitter when it comes to business automation with business systemization. But actually, we're not even talking about that. We're focusing on personal development because this is something that has been near and dear to her heart. And quite frankly, is one of the things that's allowed her to be so successful is like working on this side of things first.
Yeah, and I don't care what business, what you're doing in life. I think this conversation applies to everybody listening to this particular episode because we talked about Changemakers. We talked about something really impactful. Like we probably heard of, somebody make you angry or somebody make you sad or whatever. We unpacked this and we talked about how you can actually take power over that. Don't have to be, a victim to that, emotions and all that kind of stuff. There's so much in this episode that, I would break out the, notebooks, start taking notes because there was a lot. Listen to it twice because there were so many nuggets that I think you might miss it the first time go around.
Yeah, and I don't even know if these are nuggets, man. These are like cinder blocks that she's dropping because there's like a dozen of them, man. And yeah, it's an awesome episode. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Let's go to it right now. Here's our interview with Lisa Catto. Thank you so much for joining us in Life Inner Show. I'm so excited to have you here. Peter, I met Lisa. Well, not Lisa. We've never actually met in person, but
that's probably a good thing.
I have. You have been a big influence for me as I've gotten into the business automation world, into the Keep world. I've seen you in Greg Jenkins' group, as well as a number of other places, because you have this heart for sharing, and you're always chiming in and helping people, and you have not only that, but a tremendous amount of experience in a lot of these areas. Tell people a little bit about yourself so they can get familiar with who you are.
Okay, well, you asked for it. So I became an entrepreneur when I was 19, which was back in the late 80s. I know, I don't look old enough.
Wow, is that possible?
And my first business was actually a London's only roller skating rink, which we converted into a rave venue for 30,000 people on Friday and Saturday night. So the height of the rave game. So I had a nightclub, I'm running a roller rink. Did that for about 4 years, went on to run an animation art gallery, and from there pivoted into, I think I probably had a little bit of side hustles going on there, into making computer games. So we were the first people ever to place an advertiser in a computer game in the early 90s. Which led on to making promotional software for big brands. So we put the Adidas ball into FIFA Soccer. We did all the branding in Sony Gran Turismo. And then we went on to make promotional software on pack, in pack. You might remember the CDs that were on cereal boxes. That was us. And then that led on to making PlayStation and Xbox games for big publishers over in the States. I say over in the States because I happen to be in the UK. From there, I then retired in my mid-30s, lived in the south of France, raised my young kids, and then in about 2012, came back to the UK without a husband. Well, the husband came back, but we weren't living in the same house anymore. Kids that came and did their secondary education here, having lived in a medieval French village for all of their primary education, and I discovered Keep. Back in 2012 and was like, what am I going to do now? Well, I'm a geek. I know marketing. And oh, look, let's bring it all together into this wonderful bit of software that, back then, and it's, you look at technology in the last 20 years and how exponentially it's grown from, cassettes and videotapes when my kids were born in 2020 to now is incredible. And it's only going to get exponentially faster with AR and AI going forward. So it was amazing for me, this incredible tool that could bring all of that together and create magic and transformation in businesses. So I became a partner. I've been a partner for over 10 years. Recently, I've been given awards for training other partners. I'm I've been International Service Partner of the Year. I'm the MVP for the EMEA, and I think Canada's in that territory as well. And for me, this is my home. It's my community. It's what I do. I enjoy it. Building out customer journeys for people is like a computer game for me. I really love it. I would be doing it anyway, even if I didn't have a business around it.
That is wild. Wow. And so what is it? So is there a common thread, by the way, between any of these different ventures that you had gone into? Was it just an element of excitement? Is it because it's new? Is it because it's people? Like what was it that you think, is there a common thread between all those?
I think me being neurodivergent before it was fashionable was definitely part of it. But it's one of those things which is, if something inspires me, I think in life, it's like you create opportunities all the time, but it's whether you recognize those opportunities. And for me, evolving myself in a kind of natural way of going, oh, this looks like fun. This looks like interesting. It's piquing my interest, and just going and doing it all in while I was doing it. So outside of me having a vision of taking something forward and just being all in on whatever I was doing, there were times when I had 5 projects on the go and nothing was winning at that point. So at the point at which I decided to go, let's just do one thing at a time and kind of give it all to that. I also had, which I got rid of 3 years ago, a gas, plumbing and heating company with 12 vans on the road in London, fixing people's, you call them water heaters, we call them boilers, and their plumbing all around London. So, it's a question of seeing something. It's like fixing stuff. It's like you see that with a process, and that's obviously what automation brings. Putting in systems and processes into a business can give results. So I think it's just a bit of a challenge of getting results and seeing how efficiently you can do it by saving time and getting automated.
And so have you always had that perspective? Like you recognize opportunities, you see where problems can be fixed or weaknesses in a system. Like, is that something you think people can learn?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand the priorities, not creating problems just to solve them. But a lot, what I find is that when you are someone that naturally is always looking for solutions, I've had to slow down in that. As you can hear, I'm a very fast talker. I'm a very fast thinker. And that isn't always such a good thing. And drives my daughter mad. It's like she just wants me to hear, stop trying to solve my problem. You're so addicted to solving problems that you start creating problems in order that you've got something to solve, because you want the dopamine hit or the serotonin hit. So I've got a lot better at looking at where I'm placing my energy so that it has the best impact and the most effect.
So you mentioned impact there, and before we started recording, you mentioned a really pretty profound, catchy phrase that comes from kind of this. It seems like it's a focus of who you are and something you've really taken a fancy to, which is personal development. Talk about impact, and let's dive into that as well.
I'm a big believer in declaring who you are in the world, and then showing up as that person. I'll give you an example. So if I declare I'm an athlete, I'm not going to be stopping off at McDonald's on the way home, because that's not congruent with who being an athlete is. So who am I being in the world? And a few years ago, I rebranded my company from the back office, someone that was in the background making stuff happen, to the catalyst, the change maker, someone that is creating transformation in the world and is enabling the change makers. So I'm very good at connecting the dots, and I know where I want to be. And by enabling the change makers, by amplifying their message, I'm creating transformation in the world by bringing my genius to their teachings. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. I've got clients that are, got dog boarding and dog training. I've got clients that are doing first aid training. I've got dentists. I've got info products, and I've got a lot of transformational coaches, because I'm the catalyst. I'm in the business of transformation, and I enable the change makers. So that's who I see myself as being in the world of who I am.
How much time did it take you to figure that out? Because I'm wondering, like, there's a lot of people out there that don't know, like, what they are or who they are, or they haven't declared that. And I'm wondering, for those people, like, what does this process actually look like? And, how do they start marinating on this as well?
Okay, so there is a process to this, and what I have experienced is I've been doing personal development for 30 years. I'm not hearing any new messages now than I did 30 years ago. It's just a different voice, or I'm at a different stage in my life where a message is resonating with me differently. I once heard someone who was a prolific reader, which I am too. It's always got to be an autodidact, always around wanting to learn more, wanting to make change in your life. And he, if you have a problem in your life, let's say it's in your business where you need to hire A players, then go read books on recruitment, like the Who book. Don't go and read books on digital marketing when you need books on recruitment. And at different phases of your life, maybe you're getting married, maybe you're getting divorced, maybe you're starting a business, maybe you're coming out of a business, maybe your kids have just hit teens. Our lives are constantly in transformation. They're constantly in movement. And what you need at different points in your life is going to change. And also I see transformation as like a spiral. It's like, you're constantly on the move. You're never done. You're always work in progress, and accepting that. So the processes that work for me, which are not my own, and they come from all over the place. First of all, you've got to look at who you're being in the world now and who you want to be. What is the outcome you actually want to create for yourself? And that might change. The outcome you want today, when you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s, could be very different when you're 50s and 60s and 70s. What is the outcome you want? How are you showing up? What are the self-limiting beliefs that you have about yourself? What are the stories that you tell yourself that reinforce those self-limiting beliefs, along with the behaviors that prove that they are correct? So it's like, once you get out of your own way, and the only limit you put on yourself is the glass ceiling that you put on yourself. It's like, okay, how am I in my own way? Where do these beliefs come from? And even if you can't identify where they come from, just accept that they exist and say they don't need to exist for me anymore. And this is, in order to have this outcome, this is who I want to show up as. If in order to run the race, I need to become the athlete.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Did you know for yourself that you wanted to be this enabler of Changemakers? Like, and how long did that take you to develop that concept and that realization of that's who you are, that's in your genes?
I think the amount of time it takes depends on how much work you're prepared to put into it. Doing the looking at yourself at that kind of, and disregarding all the beliefs that you ever had about yourself and the world around you, and wanting to change that, and disregarding those beliefs to be able to create new ones. There's no timeline on it. It's not like, oh, it's going to take you 6 months. It's about how much work you put in, and effort and processing and willingness to let go of people, places, beliefs in order to move forward. So it can happen quickly, and it can take years, and it really depends on your approach and commitment to that journey. In that sense, for me, it's had different iterations as I go through, as I became a mum, when I got married, when I got divorced. It's now that my kids are at university and not at home so much, I have a constant movement of my place in the world and who I am. The mother I was when my kids were little versus secondary school versus puberty versus now when they're coming out the other side of it is, it's an amazing thing. But it's like, you beat yourself up for who you've been, and it's like, no, that whole self-flagellation, it's like forgiving yourself, forgiving your parents because you resent them for who they become. And I'm work in progress. I haven't quite managed to achieve it. So to loop back to what you said of how long does it take, it really depends on you, how much work you put in, how deep you go, how much. It's really easy to find other things to do. Like, I'll get round to looking at my limiting beliefs once I've emptied the tumble dryer and, done the washing up. Then I might have some time, because it's a scary place.
Right. Well, because I'm wondering, like, I love, I'm a big personal development fan as well. And I'm Peter's into this as well. And I'll get questions all the time. Like, what does this actually look like? Like, how do I know what my limiting beliefs are? How do I know what I'm called to do? Like, what are some practices, or how did you figure it out? And it's like, it seems like it's so hard to give this one size fits all answer, but certainly the one thing that I've seen is like, an intentionality. Like, this has to be something that you feel like nudging at you, or there's something that is there that you haven't quite tapped into yet. And then also kind of like the effort and the time. Like, do you have, like, how do you do this, or was this just like, you took time every day to focus on this? Did you journal? Did you just like have divine moments of like, all of a sudden, like, you're taking a shower and all of a sudden you think of something, and like, was it random? Like, what did it look like?
What it looked like? Well, first of all, it looks like I don't feel happy. I'm not happy. This isn't working for me, and then getting curious around that. Yes, there are practices. So I think in about 2015, 2016, I did Landmark. 2017, I think I read The Miracle Morning, but these are just tools. And what works for me doesn't always work for other people, because you're not me. You're not the same stage in your life. You might not need that right now. But I also like structure. So the Savers and Miracle Morning, which was practicing spirituality, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and scribing. So that's the Savers. But it's like it's like, you've got the knowledge. Knowledge means nothing. I was going to curse there. Knowledge means nothing if you're not taking action. Doesn't matter how much you know. So you've got to take action against that, and you've got to do the work. So and be consistent with it. So if you want to lose weight, eat less, exercise more. So I have a thing which is going to the gym every day. Now, if I go into the gym every day and I'm thinking, that's an hour, and already I don't want to go, right? So it's like, I'm going to the gym every day for 20 minutes. So I go to the gym and I might be there 20 minutes, I might be there 45 minutes, but my commitment and my agreement is to go for 20 minutes a day. Getting out into nature every day and understanding how that's impacting you, taking the time for yourself, self-care. I had a very good friend who, when I wasn't in such a great way a few years ago, sat me down and made me look at my rails. He talked about, which I don't think originated with him, like when you take your kids bowling, you have the rails down the side of the alley. What are the things that keep you in play? And I do this with my daughter a lot, which is basically for me, sleep, exercise, and nutrition, as in eating regularly, not getting to 5 PM and going, I'll have another coffee instead of having lunch. Looking after myself and giving myself permission to put myself first. And that's not to say I'm perfect and I get it right all the time, because I don't, and I'm totally work in progress. But recognizing, like, the first question, my daughter calls me for university, she's not having a good day, I'll go, what are the 3 pillars? And we go, exercise, sleep, and food. It's like, if you've got those 3 covered, then you're on the path to success. And recognizing where you're kind of not serving yourself, and you can't serve the world in the way you want to serve the world if you're not serving yourself first. All of those cliches of put your own oxygen mask on first, they're kind of true, as annoying as that is. So it's putting my own rails into place. And at the moment, the first thing I do when I wake up, I'm practicing stillness and meditation, which is just sit still, just get yourself aligned for the day. I have a client who's a listening coach, and he talks about, an orchestra tunes up before. It doesn't matter if it's the same concert hall every time, they all tune up beforehand. So just before you go into something important, just take 3 minutes. It only takes 3 minutes just to center yourself and get your energy and your intention right for what you're about to go into. And those little practices can have such a great accumulation, like a snowball effect, because it just means, like the Savers, it's that it just comes into every day. In the beginning, when you're creating new habits and new rituals, which I'm very big on, it can feel like an effort, but like anything, you start to build up, what's the word I'm looking for when you go to the gym, that consistency and sustainability and stamina. That's the word I was looking for. It's like strengthening a muscle, whether it's your spiritual muscle or your physical muscles or whatever it might be, is just doing the practice consistently. So yes, journaling, there's acts in writing that I find really therapeutic. I never read what I've written afterwards, but the act of setting my intentions for the day or being grateful it's just the energy it creates in me by getting it out. Or I've been known to just get on the train and go for 2-hour train journeys just so that I've got the time away and I'm just writing, often ranting about shit, just getting it out, rather than letting it roll around my head. So there's those practices. And wanting, my kids have played a big part of me wanting to show up for them, show them the life that they can create for themselves. If with their choice, if I can do this and be this, then this is a possibility for you, and creating those possibilities for those in my world. Did I answer your?
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I love what you're saying here because one, you give a lot of great tips and a lot of good strategies, but also I see a lot of passion behind that, what you're talking about. So one of the things that really intrigued me as you're talking is the whole idea of changemakers, because I think changemakers create the world that we live in here. You know what I mean? So my question to you is, because listeners might be sitting here and like, okay, changemakers, that sounds good, but that's not me, can anyone be a change maker? And if that's the case, like, how would I do that in my life? Like, and like, I'm a plumber or I'm a dentist. How am I a change maker?
Well,
can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, anyone and everybody is a change maker because you're interacting with other human beings every single day. I went into Costa the other day and got a coffee. The girl behind the counter, she seemed so sad. And I'm smiling at her and I'm just, give me a smile, just to lighten somebody's life. You're changing their perception. You're, whatever it is that they're sad about, or helping, random acts of kindness. Anybody and everybody can impact the world positively. You want to go and, do volunteer work for a charity, or, donate money, whatever it might be. We all have the ability to be a change maker. We're only limited by what we're prepared to do or go, but anything is possible. I'm involved in different movements of where we are enabling people to have access to resource or people that they ordinarily wouldn't have, or exposed to ideas and inspiration that they ordinarily wouldn't have. So it's what's your calling. There's no right or no wrong. This whole judgment thing of people are good, people are bad, this is right, this is wrong, is nonsense. You've got to do what's right for you and look at how you want to impact the world. Is it with animals? Is it with science? Is it with children? And embrace it and commit to it and do it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So let's consider for a minute, like, look, you talk about, let's say, animals, right? I want to impact the world of animals. And I think one of the things that I love about this particular podcast that we're talking about is, people that listen to us, we talk about creating your vision for your life. What do you want your life to become? Like, who do you need to become? Like you were talking about. So let's say it's the dogs, the animals. Do you have any tips for people to, like, how do I get outside of my thinking, right, to become this change maker in that area? Because one of the things that I've heard you is like, we were the first ones to put a CD on a cereal box. I'm like, what? Right? We were the first ones to do this, right? So there is this change maker kind of in you, I think, yourself. So how would someone go about going through this process to maybe whatever it is that they're passionate about to become the change maker in that area?
Dare to dream is stop putting limitations on yourself. Like, if you see yourself wanting kennels and fields and imagine it, create it. Don't get stuck in the process. Don't get stuck in, paint the picture. Don't worry about whether it's with oils or watercolors, or if it's this shade or that shade or whatever palette. Forget it. Just create your absolute dream, and no dream is too big. And be fixated on the outcome, not how you're going to get there. That's what I do. And that is something. There's a great book by a guy called William Whitecloud called, I think it's called The Magician's Way. It might be The Way of the Magician, which is a really good story about focusing on the outcome and not getting stuck in the process. Because we all get stuck in, well, how are we going to get there? So no, forget it. Forget about how you're going to get there, because if your energy is on the outcome, then everything else will just come into flow. It's a bit like going into a restaurant and saying to a waiter, bring me food. Okay. It's like, instead of being specific around bring me spaghetti carbonara. So what is it? Tell the universe, whatever your God, universe, your symbol is for that, should you have one, is tell it, them, him, exactly what it is that you want, because they can't serve it up if you're not being specific. So be specific about the outcome that you want, and then basically watch the magic happen.
Hey, so let me interrupt this episode. And before we get back into it, here's what I want to share with you guys. One of the things that we do throughout the year, all over the country, is we do this event called Business Builder Event. This is the event where we literally outline, help you figure out and create a business that you love and a business that support your life. One of the things that we found over the years that many people become basically a slave or work an employee to their business, and they're working so much in their business that they don't actually get to live their life. And in this particular workshop, we help you redesign that, a business that supports your life. So what do you want to have for them, Wojo? What do we have for them because of that?
Man, well, Peter, because they are loyal listeners, and I know they're tuned in every week, and they've told everyone in their life about the Life in Your Show podcast, we have a very, very special offer for you. Now, by the way, I don't know how long we're going to offer this, so this isn't forever. But if you go to lifeinair.com right now and you go to the events tab and then you go to the Business Builder Workshop, you can, when you pick the event you want, when you go to that checkout page, there's a little place right there. It says enter promo code. And guess what? We have a promo code for you for 50. That's 50, half. 50% off the ticket for the Business Builder Workshop by entering the promo code podcast into the promo code field. Instantly, you'll get a 50% savings. You'll see it right there on the screen, and you will be registered for that event. And here's the cool thing. You will be off to the races to create a life and a business that complement each other for the first time, maybe ever. And it's amazing.
One more thing I want to share with you before we jump back into the episode is this. One of the participants at our recent podcast, he was in a hot seat. We do these hot seats in front of the room, and we kind of dissect their business. And one suggestion that he got him, he made the change, went home, made the change, and pretty much within a few months went into stage 4, meaning into his business, that the business basically supported his life. The income that was coming, the cash flow that was coming into his business, by making that one change, started living in a way that he doesn't have to work for the business works for him. So yes. I would encourage you guys, head over to the website, learn about this event, type in podcast, and we'll see you on the next event. Now, let's get back into the episode.
I feel like that as people go through this journey, depending on where they are, like maybe they are realizing that they're unhappy, and yet at the same time they are afraid to dream and they're afraid to paint that picture, because once you have that picture, well, gosh, now I can fail. Like now it's real, and if I don't achieve that, then that says something about me as a person. Have you, like when you went through your journey, did you struggle with fear at all, or do you see this in other people around you?
Oh, limiting beliefs on top of limiting beliefs, compounded by some more limiting beliefs, and scared to fail, and the what ifs. And this is about getting out of your own way, surrounding yourself by people who love you and support you. I mean, I had last year, for example, my business partner sat me down with my business coach, and they basically gave me a talking to. I was going through a rough period. I had stresses, as we all do. And they basically put a mirror up, because it was coming from love from them. They were completely unconditional. And they were like, the way you're showing up right now is not congruent. You're not aligned. Your actions and your intentions are not aligned. And we love you. And if we don't tell you, you're going to carry on, and we're going to have some kind of car crash. So, having people around you that you trust, that are not coming from ego, that you're willing to listen to and hear. Me becoming coachable was one of the hardest, yet most rewarding things that I did. I have all the answers. Don't you tell me what to do. Don't you tell me what to do. Right? Is that? And I'm full of confirmation bias. I tell you, I lost $1 million, £600,000 on a business deal because I had to be right. You can be right or you can be rich. Also not my line. So it's like that confirmation bias cost me big time. What did I learn? I learned that I needed to listen. I learned that I needed to be coachable. I needed to be open-hearted and open-minded and try stuff on without being defensive. It was hard. It was a process. I had to catch myself. And I can listen and I don't have to act on it, but I have to be open to listening, and I have to be curious, and I have to listen to myself. And what am I not hearing? And what am I not seeing? And slow down to go further. So there's all these kind of little things that it's like, if you want to be happy and you want to create X in your life, who do you need to be? Well, you need to be someone that's not living in fear and self-limiting beliefs. But then it comes back to, well, what is that self-limiting belief? And is it true? And if you have a look at Byron Katie, she goes into inquiry, she has these 4 questions like, is it true? But is it really true? It's like all these stories that you're telling yourself. And that's very landmark around looking at all the stuff that happened in your past and all the stories that you tell yourself about that stuff that happened in your past, and living in it like it's true and carrying it forward into your future. So it's like, is it true, or was it your perception? Or is it, because 2 people looking at a valley from 2 different mountains, it's the same valley, but it's a different perspective. So you can create whatever stories you want. And if that was fear, then that's where you're coming from. So there's a choice. And you can choose not to live in fear. You can choose to be scared and do it anyway.
What do you think happens? I think when somebody steps, even if they are still scared, even if they still have fear and they step through it, maybe it's just that first crack in that wall where they're like, maybe I can actually do this. And like one small step at a time, maybe they start to build the confidence that this is possible, and that they're not stuck. And so, I think that's what you said before about, no matter how much knowledge you have, it's action that is really, really, really important here. You mentioned listening and this mistake that you said that you went through. How do people, and I'm guessing the answer maybe is somewhat of discernment and looking at who you're listening to and balancing that with yourself. But tell me, like, how do you, because everybody has people, well, not everybody, but some people have people in their lives that are talking to them and telling them what they can and what they can't do. And then they are balancing that off maybe with their own beliefs of what they can and they can't do. You were confronted like, hey, you're kind of out of alignment now. And you could have chose not to listen to them. What caused you to listen to them? And how can people know whether what they're hearing is accurate? Is it true? Is it helpful?
I think our own bodily response to that of, if you're feeling judged, I happen to know that those 2 guys love me unconditionally, and they're not coming from a place of ego. They're not coming from a place of wanting to be right. That whole thing of wanting to be right. I mean, it's human nature. We want to look good and we want to be right. But that is like, are they coming from a space of wanting to make me wrong? Or are they coming from a space of wanting my well-being? And I know that those 2 guys want nothing more than my happiness and my well-being, and nothing they were saying. And you just go into inquisition instead of debunking and just go, no, that's rubbish, you're talking nonsense, and getting really defensive, of just trying it on and going, is that true? And being honest with yourself around, is that how I've been showing up? And it doesn't matter if you've got reasons, and well, this happened and I hadn't slept, and someone bumped into me on the way here and I spilled coffee all over myself, so I was in a bad mood. You can have any excuses you want, but you have a choice. You are responsible for your emotions. No one else can make you feel a certain way. You have complete ownership on that. And it's about taking responsibility for that. So you can hear stuff and it's your choice how you react to it. There is a space between trigger and response. There is choice, where you can choose how you show up. You can choose how someone can be in your face screaming at you. Does that mean you have to scream back? Or can you be composed about it? And how you show up and what you feel and how you react is your responsibility. And taking that responsibility is the first step. Instead of blaming other people and having excuses as to why it's okay to behave badly or not show up as your best self, that's where I always look to go, okay, well, why am I not showing up? What is going on? My daughter is the most fantastic reflection of this for me. She is like my inner child screaming back at me. Well, and I always listen. I don't go, you're just being a spoiled brat. I'm like going, okay, why is she upset? How have I shown up or not been present or not heard her, not looked after her that is creating this? Yes, sometimes it's her, but I'm willing to listen and be open to go, you know what? I could have handled that better. And being okay with being wrong, being vulnerable and admitting that we don't always get it right. This whole thing of we've got to be perfect. No, we've got to be perfect. We've got to show up. We've got to be dressed. We've got to have makeup. Everything we've got to do is be perfect. It's like, no, I'm human. I don't get it right all the time, and that's okay. And I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I don't want to cause harm to anyone or upset. That goes without saying. But am I going to get it right all the time? No.
Yeah. Well, and as you're speaking, I'm thinking, and it sounds like it's almost part of growth, is that like the only way you grow is by changing your response and changing your choices. And then eventually, gradually kind of you get better and better and better and better. But in every move of getting better, well, you're acknowledging that in the past you were worse and you didn't have the right response and you may have messed up, but it's also letting go of that because you can't move forward and still hang on to that.
Yeah. Don't judge yourself. It's when it goes down, it's like, what did I learn? Bring value to it. Okay, well, that happened. What can I learn from it? And how can I take it forward and be better as a result? If you judge yourself and then you're beating yourself up for something that happened in the past that you cannot go back and change. If you need to go clean up with someone and go, you know what? When that happened, I really wasn't my best self. And I want to apologize for my part in what may have created something for you. And I'm sorry. And I'm looking at improving, whatever, I'm not the first person to introduce you to cleaning up, I'm sure. And if that's what you need to do, but you need to forgive yourself, because if you're still carrying forward, I was a terrible person, then that's also not a great energy to carry forward, as opposed to I forgive myself from that. I've learned from it and I'm showing up better. And you know what? I might fall down again, and that's okay, because I keep, looking at it and getting curious and moving forward.
So I have a question for you, because I don't want to overlook this, because you said something really impactful. I think some people might be listening to this podcast like, what? You telling me that he didn't make me angry, or she didn't make me angry, or she didn't make me sad, or like, what are you talking about? And you said there is a space between the trigger and the response, and that is a choice.
Correct.
Can you clarify that? Like, do you have an example of what that means? What does that look like? Because what are you talking about? I have a choice. What?
Yeah, well, between stimulus and response, there is a choice. Google it. That's also not my concept. Nothing. No, I'm not spouting here anything that is a Lisa original. Just saying, it's all learned, it's all absorbed. And sometimes I had to go read it or hear it 200 times before I actually got it. So we get triggered. We are the sum of the experiences that we've had up to now. And my triggers are different from that of my two brothers, because they're different. They had a different perspective on the world. So there's stuff that goes down that will create a response with us. So it might be that someone pulled my hair a lot when I was at school. So if anyone touches my hair now, my back goes up and I'm like, oh, don't touch my hair. And I'm exploding. Mm-hmm. There's a stimulus. My hair's been pulled and there's my response to it. But if it's like there's some kind of stimulus and I can feel myself, I'll give you a good analogy in a minute, going into a response, I can pause and I can choose to have that response or not. So when my kids were little, I used to talk to them about potty training for behavior. So if you imagine this, when a child, I'm going to use American terminology, when a child soils their diaper, when they cry their nappy, they have done a poo, right? It's like, I've done a poo. It's there. It's in the past. Someone come clean it up. I've done a poo. Then there's, I'm doing it. This is when they go through. If you've got kids, you'll understand they're doing it. They got the look on their face. They know, I know I'm doing it. And then there is, I'm about to do it. I need to go to the toilet. I need to go to the potty. And it's those different stages of recognizing the trigger, recognizing that something has happened that has triggered a response. Then there is when you're in it. Chimp Paradox is quite good for this, that book, because it's like the chimp thing. It's like, I'm ranting and raving. What am I ranting and raving? I've completely forgotten what the trigger was for this, but I'm in motion and I can't stop. So then you're in it. And then there's I'm about to go into it. Oh, but I don't have to. I have a choice whether I go that way. And it's practice, and it's getting curious, and it's self-awareness. And it can be challenging when everyone around you expects you to behave a certain way, and they're on guard, waiting for, oh my God, they're going to go off on one. They're kind of projecting it onto you. But that, Peter, is what I mean by stimulus and response, is we have a choice of how we respond, and we have a choice of how we feel. That's on us, and we're not our thoughts and our feelings. That's not.
I love that, because you just took this little time, I think, that we have, like we feel like we don't have, this happens and I'm getting emotional, right? And you just expanded it, kind of like showing that there is a much bigger space there that we can actually work with. I'm just curious, because you said, I'm going to give you an American version of it, like, soiling diaper or something. What's the British one?
Yeah, I don't know. Pooed in the nappy, crapped in the nappy. I did throw
Crapped
it in
the
there
nappy.
too.
Put in a nappy. I love that. That's
Crapped
very
in the
cool.
Pooey nappy.
Love it. So, and I guess, would you say that as someone learns how to do that, they're learning through this progression, it's just recognizing that trigger and then saying, hold on a second here. I have a choice. I can, they're talking to themselves internally. Maybe I have a choice. I can hold on, make sure that this is, this action, this response, or whatever I'm going to make is in alignment with who I really want to be and the kind of person I want to be known for. Is that kind of like how the progression goes?
I challenge anyone to not be able to look back at something that's happened and not be entirely happy about their response to it. Right? And that possibly there's a repeatable pattern there. When this happens, I have that response. Oh, here we go again. Oh, I did it again. I'm so sorry. How many times have spouses had arguments and it's this, whether it's about money or it's about raising the kids, whatever it is, and they're kicking off and smashing plates or whatever it might be. It's like, oh, I wish I hadn't responded like that again. We have that. And it's like, okay, we'll get curious around what's the trigger. And then when the trigger occurs or you find yourself in it, you go, oh God, I'm doing it again. Versus, I have a choice. And it's, you've got to recognize there's a problem. You've got to recognize that you have been triggered. And I challenge anyone to deny when they know they're not showing up as their best selves, for whatever that looks like for them. And you look back on it with your hand, you go, oh no, I did it again. I wish I hadn't have done that. I wish I could wind back the clock. They make songs about that.
Right. Yep.
Like a turn back time.
Well, Lisa, this has been amazing. There have been so many nuggets of wisdom that you have shared. And the last thing I want to kind of wrap up with is tie this back to action for us. And so what I heard is like action is when you take that moment to think about how you're going to respond. Action is, making that commitment to go to the gym or eat right, get your sleep. Like where else do you see like this as being a powerful kind of transition into that side of the equation?
Go for a long walk and decide on what you want. What do you really want? What can you dare to believe? A great exercise for this is the Wheel of Life. Go Google it. Go, just take the segments of your world, career, family, relationships, whatever it might be, and look at where you're at. So is that a 5 out of 10? Is that a 7 out of 10? And what does a 10 out of 10 look like? And what would need to happen for you to, what does the 10 out of 10 actually look like, and bring that into being? Because it can be quite overwhelming, to look at what do I want materially? What do I want out of relationships? What do I want out of my work life, whatever it might be? So break it. For me, I always find kind of ways in which I can wrap my head around it. And, if I'm working on my health and fitness today, or I'm working on my relationships tomorrow, I've got cards on my desks of, I have an alarm on a Saturday, which goes off for me to text 3 people to make sure that I'm keeping my relationships, because otherwise I end up being busy and I forget. So putting the stuff in place that is your rails to make sure that happens. So, what is it that you want? And it doesn't matter how many books you've read. It doesn't matter how many courses you've attended or done, or how many webinars you've watched. Because if you're not taking action against that knowledge, then I don't see any way in which you can move forward. And if you don't know how to move forward, then have a look at your life and go, where am I happy? If I break my life down into these 8 pieces of pizza, and this is a 4 out of 10, and that's an 8 out of 10. Well, how do I get the 4 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10? What does a 10 out of 10 look like? What would my life look like at a 10 out of 10? And, get focused on the outcome. Go for a long walk and have a think about what do you want.
Amazing. Lisa, where do people find out more about you and your business?
Well, my website is thebusinesscatalyst.co.uk. That's probably the best place. Lisa Catto, Catto, LinkedIn or Facebook. Come find me. And that's me.
Well, I just want to say one last thing is you are definitely an enabler of Changemakers. No questions asked. So thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you. It's been fun. I do like ranting on a screen.
Dude, that was awesome, man. Like what a great interview, man. She had so many awesome tips. And I'll just let's just go back and forth, man, and talk about some of our favorite ones. Like I love that she talked about what are your rails? Like that was something I really enjoyed. Like what are the rails when you're bowling? What are the things that kind of keep you in alignment, moving in the right direction? So she mentioned those 3, like, what are you eating? Are you getting enough rest? Are you exercising? And those are just some of the physiological things. But how simple, like anybody can do that. Like it's so relevant and applicable.
Did that rails thing resonate with you? Because when you play
I'm a bad
bowling,
bowler.
you have rails up actually. Is that what happens?
I need rails.
Because otherwise you're getting a gutter.
That's
and listen,
right.
And that's what happens in life too, right? If you start, getting in the gutter, look how we do this with our minds, right? How we get emotional in the gutter or the way we are being. She kept talking about over and over and over again is create who you want to be, and then who do I need to become in order to get there? And I think that's such an impactful thing. I talk about this all the time because you need to become someone before you actually get that thing, right? So creating that vision, we talk about this on the show all the time.
Yep.
You write this vision, and who do you need to become in order to reach that vision? Right. Not so much about, focusing on how. Remember at one point in the episode, she talked about, when I asked her a question, she goes, well, because we get stuck in the process. We get stuck in the how.
Yeah.
And I think that happens for so many people that's what takes them off the path, right? Gets them stuck or gets them, demotivated or whatever it might be in order to reach that goal, because they get stuck on the how.
Yeah, they get overwhelmed with the how and all the steps, and I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. Like so I love what she said. Like, paint that picture, create that image of what you want, and then you put it out there. And she mentioned early on, like she declared who she's going to be. Like, this is your identity. And I love the example she used. Like, if you call yourself an athlete, you're not going to stop at McDonald's. Right. Mm-hmm. And so some of the habits that you develop will simply be the result, or I should say more easily in alignment with the result of who you want to be when you view yourself a certain way. Like, if you say like, I quit smoking, right? Well, that's different than saying I'm a non-smoker. Right. And who that identity is for you. Now, how does that apply to your life? Like, who are you trying to become? What do you want in your life? I love the phrase that she came up with. And I know you're mad that you didn't think of this yourself, but like, I'm the enabler of the changemakers. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's so powerful. And you can see that in her energy, right? Like she just radiates this energy of like, of possibility, which is really cool too. So she's living it.
Yeah. And the other thing that, just to touch on that, what you just said, one of the things that really stuck with me, you guys know that I listen to Tony Robbins is like my mentor. He just doesn't know it yet. But he says that the strongest force in human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves.
Right.
So with the identity, like if we identify ourselves that way, this is the strongest force in human personality to stick with that. Right? Yeah. If I suck, guess what? You're going to have a strong need to stay within that personality of I suck, how you identify yourself. So create who you want to identify yourself. So that's the first thing. The second thing that really stuck with me is when she talked about the emotions, and she said there is a space between the trigger and the response, and that is a choice. And when you get that as a human being, you start to notice how you are responding around the world, and you have a choice whether or not you want to, respond in an X or Y way. And there's so much power in that.
Dude, and it's not just, this is what I want to make sure people are clear. We're not just talking about like someone's in your face and they're yelling at you, but it's in everything. Like, so you get a disappointing email, or you get some news that's kind of like not what you had hoped. Like, you have a choice of how you can respond to that. What can I learn for this? How can I really, reframe this in a way? Like, what can I do with this that doesn't interrupt or conflict with who I've just identified myself to be, and so you have this choice, sure. It's when something, you're angry, like that's the most obvious one, like when you're fighting with your spouse or something like that, but it's in everything, like everything, you come back to a messy house. All right. What's your reaction going to be,
Yeah. And we're not dismissing, some of us listening on this podcast we have some really tough things going on in life, right?
Oh yeah.
Something, impactful, horrible, or tragic might have happened. And now you're telling me I need to be happy? Yeah. No, that's not what we're saying. We're just talking about the fact that we in life, people have choice. And I think a lot of us don't see that, and when you start planting that little seed in your mind that you have a choice, that seed can grow, and it can grow, and it can grow. And before you know it, you can expand in what areas of your life you start looking as that as a choice. And when you get that, all of a sudden your life changes. It shifts in a much more impactful way where you can start living that vision that you wrote down.
Totally, man. Yeah, there's so many nuggets in here. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and I hope you do something with it, right? Because she tied it all together. I said, like, nothing changes without action. This is something we've been preaching and promoting and encouraging people to think about for a while now. Is like, you can read all these books, and you can attend all these classes, and you can do all these trainings, but you got to really implement it and do something with it. And just something like, if you read a book and picked just one sentence of an action to incorporate, that's better than reading 20 books and not doing anything. Right. So just realize, and the analogy she used at the end is applicable here as well with the action, is like, the baby who tells you like they already pooped in their diaper, then they're about to, or they're doing it right then and there, then they're getting ready to, and they have the heads up with that. So like, it's just a process of continual development, continual growth. You're never there. We're never perfect. And moving towards that and letting go of the mistakes you've made is just a crucial part of that progress, of that spiral, like she put it, man. Awesome episode. Thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave us a review, leave us a rating, please. You'll help us reach more people, and then we can impact lives around the world as well in partnership together. All right. We'll see you next week, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.